the collision that gave us the moon. It was not supposed to create anything beautiful. It was meant to end a world before it ever began. Instead, it reshaped the future of an entire planet. Today, the moon feels permanent, familiar, almost timeless, but its existence is a result of a near-total catastrophe. To understand why Earth looks the way it does now, why its days are measured in stable rhythms, and why life was ever given a chance to emerge, we have to return to the moment when everything almost fell apart. Because the same forces that threaten destruction are often the ones that quietly create balance. This is a pattern that repeats throughout Earth's history, and it begins here, with an impact so vast it defies imagination. In the early solar system, space was crowded and unpredictable. Young planets drifted through overlapping paths, pulled by gravity into unstable dances that could end at any moment. Earth was still forming, hot and restless, while nearby bodies competed for space and momentum. Among them was a rogue world, massive and fast, moving on a trajectory that would not bend away in time. Nothing in the solar system at that stage had settled into permanent orbits. Everything was still negotiating its place, and negotiations conducted by gravity tend to end violently. This approaching body carried enough mass to alter Earth forever. It was not a gentle encounter or a distant pass. It was a direct collision, driven by gravity and timing rather than intent. As the two worlds drew closer, their molten surfaces and unstable interiors made the outcome impossible to control. Neither body could absorb the other cleanly, and neither could escape the gravitational grip pulling them together. The impact would arrive without warning, rewriting the rules Earth had just begun to learn. And when it did, nothing about the planet would ever be the same again. As the distance closed, gravity accelerated everything beyond restraint, pulling the two bodies together with irresistible force. There was no single moment of impact, but a violent sequence of collisions that unfolded faster than comprehension. Entire regions of Earth's surface were stripped away, while the invading world was torn apart in the same instant. Its material scattered in every direction. The heat release was beyond anything the planet had experienced before. Rock behaved like liquid, and liquid behaved like vapor, as matter was blasted into space and briefly became something closer to plasma than stone. Earth did not crack or split cleanly. It deformed, stretched, and absorbed the blow, reshaping itself under pressures that erased any remaining memory of its earlier form. The energy involved was so immense that the distinction between solid and liquid ceased to exist across the entire surface. Around the wounded planet, a vast cloud of debris formed, glowing from heat and motion. It did not escape into the solar system, and it did not fall back immediately. Instead, it entered orbit, circling Earth in a widening ring of molten fragments. Each piece carried part of Earth's past and part of the intruder's mass, mixed together in violent equilibrium. This ring stretched across an enormous volume of space, dense enough to block light and hot enough to glow against the darkness. Inside the planet, the collision triggered a deep internal response. Shock waves traveled to the mantle and core, intensifying convection and redistributing energy throughout the interior. Earth's rotation sped up, then slowed, then stabilized into a new rhythm. The axis shifted, locking the planet into a tilt that would later define seasons and climate. The deep interior had been permanently reorganized, its layers mixed and resealed in configurations that would persist for billions of years. What mattered most was not the destruction itself, but what followed. The debris did not disperse randomly. Gravity began its patient work again, pulling fragments together, encouraging collisions that built rather than destroyed. Over time, the ring thinned, clumped, and reorganized itself, setting the stage for a transformation no one could have predicted. What began as devastation was quietly becoming structure, and the consequences were only just beginning to unfold. Over thousands of years, the debris orbiting Earth refused to remain scattered. Gravity pulled fragments together, collision by collision, until chaos began to condense into form. What had once been a glowing ring of molten rock slowly organized itself into a single body, growing larger and more defined with each encounter. The process was violent, but it was no longer destructive in the same way. This time, every impact added instead of erased. As the moon took shape, its presence began influencing Earth almost immediately. Tidal forces reached deep into the planet's molten interior, stretching and compressing the surface in slow, rhythmic cycles. These forces release heat, encourage internal motion, and prevented the planet from cooling too quickly. Earth was being stabilized by something born from its own destruction. The tidal interaction created a feedback between the two bodies, binding their fates together in ways that neither could reverse. The relationship between Earth and its new companion was not gentle. The moon orbited much closer than it does today, pulling strongly on the planet and slowing its rapid spin. Days grew longer. Rotation became more controlled. The wild, chaotic motion of Earth's early years gave way to a steadier pace that allowed patterns to form and persist. Where the planet had once spun so fast that no surface feature could hold its shape, the slowing rotation gave the crust time to respond to forces without shattering. This interaction also protected the planet in ways that would only become clear much later. The moon's gravity helped lock Earth's axis into a stable tilt, preventing extreme variations that could have pushed the climate into permanent instability. Without this balance, the planet might have swung between frozen darkness and unbearable heat, never settling long enough for anything complex to endure. The tilt itself became a gift, creating the conditions for seasons that would someday drive cycles of growth and renewal across the surface. What makes this moment so remarkable is that it was never guaranteed. A slightly different angle, a slightly faster approach, a small shift in mass. Any of these could have sent the debris flying into space or collapsing back onto Earth in a way that ended the story entirely. Instead, Earth gained a partner that would shape its future in silence. And with that partnership, the planet moved closer to something it had never known before: consistency. As the moon drifted farther away, settling into a stable orbit, its influence became less violent and more deliberate. The extreme tides softened into predictable rhythms, shaping the planet rather than tearing at it. Earth's interior continued to churn, but now within boundaries that allowed heat to escape gradually instead of catastrophically. The surface, once endlessly renewed by destruction, began to remember itself. This new balance changed everything. With a steady rotation and a locked axial tilt, Earth entered an era where long-term patterns could exist. Days followed nights. Seasons repeated instead of collapsing into extremes. The planet was no longer reacting blindly to every force that struck it. It was responding, adjusting, and maintaining equilibrium over time. For the first time, consequences could accumulate instead of being erased, and that accumulation would prove to be the foundation of everything that followed. The moon also became a silent shield in Earth's early history. Its gravity altered the paths of passing debris, sometimes drawing danger away, sometimes absorbing impacts that might have reached the planet itself. Even when it did nothing at all, its presence reshaped space around Earth in subtle ways, reducing chaos in an already hostile environment. The scarred surface of the moon itself tells this story, covering craters from collisions it absorbed so that Earth did not have to. What emerged from this relationship was not peace, but resilience. Earth had learned how to survive without constant reinvention. It could change slowly, adapt incrementally, and progress instead of resetting to zero after every catastrophe. This stability would soon allow something unprecedented to begin. The collision that should have ended Earth instead gave it time. Time for oceans to settle. Time for an atmosphere to grow. Time for chemistry to experiment without interruption. Time, eventually, for life. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.